My name is Nantida. I'm 71 years old, and I want to tell you something that I wish someone had sat beside me and said during the hardest years of my life. Something so simple that it almost sounds too gentle for the weight of what you might be carrying right now. But simple is not the same as small, and gentle is not the same as weak. And what I am about to say to you is perhaps the most powerful thing anyone has ever said to me. The thing that finally, after decades of struggle and rushing and fear, allowed me to breathe again. Everything is working in your favor right now. Not in the past, not someday, right now, in this moment. Even if it doesn't look like it, even if the evidence in front of you seems to be saying the opposite, even if you are exhausted and confused and wondering whether anything you have done has mattered at all. Something is moving, something is being arranged, something is already in motion that your eyes cannot yet see and your mind cannot yet measure. I know how that sounds when you are in the middle of something hard. I know how those words can feel like a kind of cruelty, like being told to smile when your heart is breaking. So let me tell you where I was when I first truly understood them. Let me tell you about the floor I was sitting on, and the feeling in my chest, and the particular quality of the silence in that room, so that you know I am not speaking to you from a comfortable distance. I am speaking from the same place you might be in right now. I was 54 years old. The business I had built over 15 years had collapsed. Not dramatically, not overnight, but slowly, the way a building settles when its foundation has been quietly compromised for too long. By the time I understood what was happening, it was already done. The clients were gone, the income was gone, and with it, a version of myself that I had built my entire identity around. I sat on the floor of my office the last evening I was there, not because I had chosen to sit on the floor, but because my legs had simply stopped holding me up. And I remember looking at the walls, the shelves that were half empty already, the small details of a place that had been mine for so many years, and feeling something I had never felt before with such completeness. I felt like the universe had stopped caring about me. That is the only honest way I can describe it. Not anger, not even grief exactly, just the profound, bottomless sensation of being abandoned by something I had never quite believed in, but had apparently been depending on all along. I stayed on that floor for a long time, long enough for the light to change, long enough for the room to go from the warm orange of late afternoon to the grey-blue of early evening. And in that changed light, something happened that I have never been able to fully explain in practical terms, but that I have spent the years since trying to understand. A thought arrived, not a thought I had chosen or constructed, a thought that simply appeared, the way a sound appears from outside a window, without you having summoned it. The thought was this: What if this is not the end of something? What if this is the clearing of the ground for something that couldn't have grown while the other thing was still standing? I didn't believe it immediately. I want to be honest about that. A single quiet thought does not undo months of slow collapse and the exhaustion of a person who has been trying too hard for too long. But I held it. The way you hold something small and warm in your hands when the room is cold. Not certain of it, just unwilling to put it down. And in the months that followed, I watched, slowly and with a great deal of discomfort and uncertainty, what actually happened when the thing I thought was my life cleared away. What I saw was this. Every single door that closed in that period was a door that had been leading me somewhere I didn't actually want to go. Every loss contained, somewhere in its wreckage, the seed of something that fit me more truly. Every forced ending made space for a beginning that I would never have been willing to choose for myself, because I had been too afraid, too identified with what I already had, too unwilling to let go. But the universe, whatever you call that force that seems to move beneath the surface of things, had not abandoned me. It had simply been doing something I was too close to see. It was working in my favor the whole time, even when everything I could see suggested otherwise. I am not telling you that suffering is meaningless. I am not telling you that pain is a gift wrapped in disguise and you should feel grateful for it. That would be dishonest, and I refuse to be dishonest with you. Pain is pain. Loss is loss. Difficulty is genuinely difficult, and you are allowed to name it that way without apologizing. What I am telling you is that the difficulty and the working in your favor are not opposites. They can exist in the same moment. The ground can be hard beneath your feet, and something beautiful can still be growing underneath it. The river can feel like it is pulling you under, and it can still be carrying you somewhere you need to arrive. Both things are true at the same time. And the work, the real work, the kind of work that changes a life from the inside rather than just rearranging its surface, is learning to hold both truths simultaneously. To say, this is hard, and also something is working. I don't understand it yet, but something is working. I want to speak now about something very specific because I think you deserve specificity and not just comfort. There is a particular kind of exhaustion that comes from trying to control outcomes that are not yet ready to be controlled, from trying to force clarity about a future that is still forming, from demanding that the universe show its hand before it is ready to reveal the cards. I lived in that exhaustion for most of my adult life. Not because I was foolish or fearful in any extraordinary way, but because I had learned, as most of us learn, that vigilance was safety. That worrying about something was the same as taking responsibility for it. That if I could anticipate every possible difficulty and prepare for every possible failure, I would somehow be protected from them. But vigilance is not the same as control, and worrying is not the same as wisdom. And the exhaustion of trying to manage a future that hasn't arrived yet is one of the most real and least acknowledged forms of suffering that I know. You are perhaps carrying that exhaustion right now. The weight of everything you are trying to hold together. The mental inventory of everything that could go wrong. The calculations you run over and over without arriving at any answer that feels safe enough to rest in. The feeling that if you relax, even for a moment, something will slip that you were supposed to be holding. I want to say something to that part of you, the part that is gripping, the part that is calculating. The part that has been on duty for so long, it has forgotten what rest feels like. You can put it down for a moment, not permanently, not irresponsibly, just for right now, just for the length of this breath, just long enough to feel what it is like when the gripping stops. Because the gripping, while it feels like protection, is also a form of interference. It fills the space where grace could enter. It occupies the frequency where solutions tend to arrive. It keeps you so busy with what might go wrong that you miss the small movements and quiet openings that are already trying to show you the way forward. When you calm down, when you genuinely, bodily, honestly calm down, something opens. Not a magical portal, not a supernatural event, something very human and very real. Your perception widens. Your nervous system, which has been running in emergency mode, begins to downshift. And from that downshifted state, you can see things you were too contracted to see before. You can hear things that the noise of your own anxiety was drowning out. You can notice the small, available next step that was right in front of you all along, but invisible to eyes that were scanning frantically for the full staircase rather than accepting the single step that was offered. Calming down is not passive. It is one of the most active and courageous things you can do when everything around you is uncertain. Let me tell you what I have observed over these 71 years about the way things actually work. Not the way we are told they work, not the theory of it, the living, observed, real pattern of it. Things almost never unfold the way we planned, but they frequently unfold in ways that, looked at from a later point in time, seem almost impossibly well designed for where we actually needed to go. The detour becomes the destination. The loss becomes the clearing. The closed door becomes the evidence that this was never the right building. I have seen this in my own life with a consistency that I cannot dismiss as coincidence. And I have seen it in the lives of people I have known and loved and watched closely enough to observe the whole arc, not just the middle where it looks most frightening, the whole arc. And the arc almost always bends, eventually, towards something that fits more truly than what was lost. This is what I mean when I say that everything is working in your favor right now. Not that the situation is comfortable, not that the fear is unfounded, not that you should pretend to feel fine when you don't, but that beneath the surface of what you can see, something is being arranged. Something is clearing and forming and preparing. Something that your current vantage point, right in the middle of the difficult part, cannot yet reveal. Trust is not the same as certainty. You can trust without knowing exactly how things will work out. You can trust without being naive about the difficulty of your situation. Trust is simply the willingness to remain open to the possibility that the story is not over, that the chapter you are in is not the last one, that the ground beneath your feet, even when it is hard, is not collapsing. I want to invite you to do something right now before this conversation ends. Not a complicated exercise, something very simple. Something that takes less than a minute, but that I have found over many years of practicing it to have an effect that is larger than its simplicity suggests. Put one hand on your chest. Feel your heartbeat. It is there. It has been there through every difficult thing you have ever survived. Every moment that felt unsurvivable. Every night that felt endless. Your heart has been beating through all of it. Without your instruction, without your control, something in you, something that does not depend on your worry or your planning or your vigilance, has been keeping you alive this entire time. That something is still working. Breathe into it just once. One real breath all the way down. And as you exhale, let one thing go. Not everything, just one thing. The tightest thing. The thing you have been holding longest. Just for this breath. And notice in the moment after the release what it feels like when the gripping stops. Even briefly, even incompletely. Notice the small, quiet spaciousness that opens up when you are not using all of your energy to hold on. That spaciousness is where the next thing enters. That is where the favor shows up, not in the straining, in the opening. Everything is working in your favor right now. Not in spite of the difficulty you are in. Sometimes through it. Sometimes because of it. In ways you cannot yet see, but that I have lived long enough to trust. Calm down. Not because the situation doesn't deserve your attention, but because your clearest, most capable, most open self is the one who will navigate it best. And that self only appears when the gripping loosens enough for her to breathe. She is already in you. She has always been in you. She is waiting, patiently, for the moment when you are willing to be still enough to feel her there. I believe that moment can be right now. If something in these words has reached a place in you that needed reaching, I want to invite you to stay in this space. Come back when the fear gets louder than the trust. Subscribe and walk with me because I have many more conversations like this one to share with you, gathered from a life that has known genuine difficulty and found its way through, not by force, but by learning slowly and honestly to remain open when every instinct said to close. You are not alone in this. The universe has not stopped caring about you, and the part of the story you cannot yet see may be the most important part of all. Calm down, open your hands, and let what is already working find its way to you. It will. I have seen it happen too many times to doubt it, and I am trusting it for you right now until you are ready to trust it for yourself.